It's spring break season.
Woohoo!
It's so exciting. I hope you guys are going somewhere fun. We are going to Florida.
My favorite spring break location. I love Florida so much.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like birds.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring.
We pretty much try to get to Florida at least once a year. We're kind of obsessed.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. A fair way to say
It's so
it.
wonderful. The weather is so nice. Here's the thing. My dad's family is all from Florida, and we never went to visit them, really. I have some memories of being in Florida, but what I remember most is my dad always saying, never go to Florida in the summer. That's what I know. And so we just kind of wrote it off as it's fine. We don't need to go there.
Right.
And then, we discovered Everglades, which was not very high on my list of places to visit. But since we're national park people, we're like, we probably should go there.
Ash had basically checked a lot, pretty much everything else off of her list of easily accessible national parks by plane.
I know.
She was like, I guess it's time to go to Florida.
I guess we should go to Florida. And I loved Everglades. And we went to Dry Tortugas and Biscayne and everything right there. And that was, what would you say, probably 6 years ago or so. And we're in Florida every year now.
Yeah.
We love it so much. So we're obsessed. We're going to Florida. Hopefully you're going somewhere fun. I wish you guys could talk back to us. But if you need, maybe you're not going anywhere, but you want that spring break road trip feel, we have a really fun episode that includes some of our favorite spring break destinations that we'll link in the show notes. So even if you're not going anywhere, listen to that episode. Go hit some trails with your family. They can be small ones. They can be local ones. But get outside. Go get some dirt in your shoes. Be active. Have adventures. Make the most of your spring break.
We'll be getting some sand in our flip-flops.
You bet it.
I'm so excited.
I know. I am bringing books, and I am sitting on beaches, and I am eating good food, and we'll see beyond that where life takes me. So
that's kind of how I feel about today's episode. We'll just kind of see where this takes us. I'm pretty excited about today's episode because it's totally different from a spring break national park. We're going deep underground. Instead of the warm weather, we're going to the cold deep.
I love Wind Cave. So if you didn't listen to our Exploring Wind Cave episode before this one, go listen to that one. But Wind Cave is in South Dakota. It's a fairly small national park on the surface, but we're going to talk about why it's not actually very small.
Yes.
Here in a few minutes. But a lot of people kind of bypass Wind Cave or just don't think much about it or just really kind of discount what it is. When you're going to South Dakota, pretty much the only thing people know that's in South Dakota is Mount Rushmore.
Right.
But that whole Black Hills area has a lot, and Wind Cave is just right there. And yet, it gets bypassed.
It does.
So today, we are here to convince you should not bypass this park. It is so cool. The history of Wind Cave is actually probably one of my favorites of any national park. I just love the spirit of adventure. I love just how people do really cool things.
Exactly.
I
think, and I just want to point out that Ash was a park ranger at a cave.
I gave cave tours through Timpanogos Cave National Monument here in Utah, and I love caves. I love cave tours.
Right.
I am happy to give cave tours, but there are some crazy people out there who will spend days in a cave. That is not me.
Ash loves to camp, but she may not like to camp underground.
I do start to feel a little claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, you know, when you go on cave tours, and they do this at Wind Cave too, where they turn out all the lights
Mm-hmm.
and it's complete darkness and you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Mm-hmm.
So I just always had really big fears that like I would get stuck in a cave in complete darkness.
Right.
That terrifies me. So nope, couldn't be a cave scientist, but I do really love caves.
Yeah.
And Wind Cave has something rare, and that's what makes it so special.
There's so much that make it special. It's got things that are rare. It's like you mentioned earlier, it's got an amazing history, which we're going to cover all of these things today. But you did kind of mention it's a small national park. Like compared to a lot of other national parks, it's pretty small.
Yeah, there's only like 3 roads you drive.
Exactly. And because it's so small, I was a little bit nervous that the more I studied it and the more I prepared for this episode, the more the mystery of it would go away for me.
Oh,
You know, like sometimes the more mysterious it is, the more exciting it is.
right.
But my fears were totally unnecessary. Because after preparing for this episode, I think Wind Cave is cooler than ever. It's like being married to Ash. You know, we've been married for 14 years. I've learned lots of things about her. We've spent so much time together. Some of the mysteries are gone, but I love her more than ever. I love you more than ever, babe.
Thanks.
But
Thanks. I'm pretty shallow on the surface. Is that what we're saying? You got to go deeper.
oh, definitely not the takeaway. Definitely don't take that away. We're going to have a fight later. I can't believe you said that. But hopefully everybody will feel that way about Wind Cave after today's episode too, because there's so much to discover. And we're going to cover a lot. And, you know, it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg is what we're going to hit. There's so much below the surface. Cave joke right there. But usually in Fun Facts episodes, we start with the more sciencey things and we end with the human history. We're actually going to switch that up today.
Yay! Human history, my favorite.
Because I think like starting with the human history, like there's just so much here. And I want to set the stage for the cave itself. And the story of Wind Cave, to me, it's like a lot of the stories that we've seen played out in movies and on TV and read about in books. And like some of my absolute favorite stories start kind of like this. A man is walking through the woods or in the desert. You don't know why, but unexpectedly, he stumbles onto something. It's usually something ancient. Or the movie starts a different way. You've got somebody digging with a shovel, you know, 1 shovelful, 2 shovelfuls, and then tink, and then he like unsure of what it is, pokes it again, tink, 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 you know, and then he digs around it and then pulls something out, you know, and it's usually something really cool, but the movie all starts this way, you know, there's an object or something that somebody finds, and it sets the movie off on its way. A lot of times it's something kind of secret and maybe even have some hidden powers. Just think of some of your favorite stories. Like for me, it's like special rings, you know, sometimes a stone, a wardrobe, swords, eggs, books. People stumble onto things all the time, including doorways and passageways that lead to amazing things. Sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes they were forgotten. Sometimes they were taken or left behind on purpose or on accident or because of unexpected circumstances. War, volcanoes, natural disasters, the need for escape, whatever it was, the special thing was left behind. And then we fast forward 5, 10, 100, even 1,000 years into the future where the main story takes place. Well, my friends, that is the story of Wind Cave National Park. Something special left behind, found years later on accident by 2 brothers riding their horses through a shallow ravine in 1881. Now, I don't think it's an understatement to say that the mid to late 1800s were a time of great change and turmoil in what would become the United States that we see today. We had the Mexican-American War, our own Civil War, the Spanish-American War, Lincoln assassination, gold being found in California, and suddenly millions of people packed up and headed out west, following the tracks of the Mormon pioneers and trappers all the way to the West Coast. But when gold seemed to dry up in California, Americans started to fan out all across the American West. Boom town after boom town. Gold, silver, all kinds of minerals. But it wasn't just prospectors and miners. Homesteaders and ranchers came too. But the problem was, now they wanted to occupy the land that previously they were just passing through. Well, Ash recently gave me a book that both her and I had read several years ago about Crazy Horse.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that book?
Such a good book.
It was really interesting reading that story from the perspective of the Lakota people. And I think both of Ash and I remember there's some scenes in the book where a lot of the Americans from back east that are traveling, like a lot of the Lakota people would just kind of like sit on a hill, and it was almost like their form of people watching. They would just watch the wagon trains go across the plains. And early on during the gold rushes, when people were just heading out to California, it was low stakes in a lot of ways because people weren't stopping in the middle. Right. They were just going to the coast. But when they started to inhabit, or when people wanted to stay in the interior, that's when things really got heated. And it got heated rather quickly. Pretty soon it seemed like the U.S. Army was fighting all across the frontier. The Comanche in Texas, the Apache in the Southwest, and throughout the Great Plains and Rocky Mountains, the U.S. Army was fighting the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Kiowa. Every inch of the American West seemed like it was being contested. And one of the most hotly contested places in the West was what, Ash?
South Dakota.
The Black Hills.
Yep.
The Lakota people considered the Black Hills sacred. They believed that the Buffalo and the Lakota people themselves both came from the Black Hills, and they fought to keep them as their own lands. And it was actually agreed to. In 1868, the U.S. government signed the Fort Laramie Treaty. Under the agreement, large swaths of land, including the Black Hills, were considered exclusive Native American land. Well, just about everybody knows that didn't last very long. And in fact, when gold was discovered in the Black Hills in 1874 at French Creek, it was discovered as part of a U.S. Army expedition headed by none other than George Custer. And once gold was struck, there was no turning off the faucet of prospectors, homesteaders, ranchers, and in general, just Americans who would flock to the area. Because in 1875, gold was also discovered in another one of our favorite towns, Deadwood Gulch.
Deadwood is really cool.
Deadwood is super cool.
But boo! Stay out!
In 1876, one of Deadwood's most famous inhabitants, Wild Bill Hickok, and Calamity Jane, along with thousands of others, showed up to try their luck in the West's newest hotspot. But when they showed up, they all expected protection from the U.S. Army. And then everything went crazy. Battles between Native Americans and the U.S. Army raged throughout the territory. Chiefs and warriors that most people recognize, like Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, and Sitting Bull, engaged with Brigadier General George Crook and Lieutenant Colonel George Custer, along with regiments of the U.S. cavalry and artillery. And I don't know, this might be contested, but aside from the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, this period of war called the Great Sioux War is probably one of the most iconic of any I think we've had on the continent. You've see it in so many movies, from Dances with Wolves to really there's just a lot of movies of that time period where you see the U.S. Army coming into the West and you have battles with the Native Americans. Different worlds, different cultures, different weapons, all fighting for their way of life. And in 1876, Custer was killed at the Battle of Little Bighorn. In 1877.
Which is a national park site, by the way.
It is. And we've been there.
We need to do an episode on that, I think.
Yeah.
It's a really special place.
Yeah.
This whole area you can feel it. You can feel it in the air.
Yeah.
And it's still sacred to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And this, like I mentioned that this is kind of an iconic period. It's also a really heavy period.
It is. It's really sad.
It's really it's hard to handle properly. But in 1877, Crazy Horse was killed at Fort Robinson, Nebraska. And while the American West still maintained its fierceness for a few more years, I think that was the turning point, really, when Crazy Horse was killed. That's when the Wild West started to become a little less wild. Because in 1877, the Lakota were removed from the Black Hills and they were put on reservations, leaving behind their home, their hunting grounds, and their most sacred places and their sacred things. And with the fighting over, so many people began spreading throughout the American West that only 13 years later, the U.S. Census Bureau stated that they could no longer find a frontier. Which brings us back to the story of two young cowboys who were riding through a shallow ravine in the southern Black Hills only 4 years after the Lakota were forced to leave them.
I didn't realize it was that close.
It's that soon.
Yeah.
Legend goes that in 1881, Tom and Jesse Bingham were riding along when Jesse heard an odd whooshing sound. They both got off their horses. They went to investigate. What they found was a hole in the rocks, only about 10 inches wide, that was blowing so hard that it blew Tom's hat right off his head. Later, they returned to show some friends, but the wind had changed directions, and when placed over the opening, it actually sucked his hat in. And so that's what they stumbled upon, like many of our favorite characters in stories, was something extraordinary, something left behind but not forgotten. Which brings us to fun fact number 1. What they stumbled upon was what the Lakota people call Maka Oniye, or breathing earth. And fun fact number 1 is that Maka Oniye, or what we call Wind Cave, is considered the birthplace of the Lakota people and the buffalo.
Duh. Chills.
I know. Legend says that this is where the Lakota people and the bison first emerged from the spirit lodge many eons ago. Circumstances forced them to leave it behind, but they never forgot where they came from. And fast forward to present day, you can actually read the full emergence story on the NPS website, or you can hear it told to you by a Native American park ranger. It's really interesting. It's a little too long for us to go through the whole story here, but if you're interested, go check it out.
We'll link it in the show notes so that you can see it. And also, we'll link the Crazy Horse book that we really like because, like John said, it's from the Lakota
perspective.
Yeah, which I think just makes it so much better. So anyway, we'll link both of those things in the show notes too, so you can dig deeper if you want.
Right. But with all the history surrounding this part of the country, even with Sitting Bull's nephew talked about this place specifically being the place of emergence for the buffalo, I think it's kind of important to recognize that this tiny opening in the earth is part of why the Lakota and other Native American tribes fought so hard to keep the Black Hills.
I know. Can you imagine? Like, that's the beginning of your entire story, your entire tribe, your entire way of living.
Right.
And being and believing. Like, that's a really, really special place.
It is.
To them. It's even still.
And I think it's kind of cool that they built the visitor center a little way off from the natural entrance, because the natural entrance, it's a little bit of a quieter place.
Yeah.
And you walk past it and you kind of stop at it when you take some of the tours and things, but it's a little place apart from some of the main hubbub of the park. And so you can go there and they have some interpretive panels and some things that kind of describe how important this is to the native peoples. But I just think it's really neat because a lot of times we think that the story started at a certain time when it was discovered by a Euro-American. But this has a long history before we even got here. And I think that's neat to talk about. So that's why one of the reasons why I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but Maka Oniye, the breathing earth. It's so cool. And that's the first part of the human history that I wanted to talk about. The second part is also really cool. And the second part is all about exploration.
Yeah.
And I'm so pumped about that. And you know what's really interesting, Ash, is that according to the NPS, there isn't any evidence of anyone entering the cave until 1881.
I would imagine so. You would think if it's so sacred, the Native Americans probably didn't go in there.
Right. I think that's very, very possible. Not to mention it's a 10-inch wide hole.
Right. Send a child in there.
Exactly. And so it makes sense that previous to being discovered by these two cowboys that it wouldn't have been explored very much. But in 1881, a local boy named Charlie Crary squeezed through the natural entrance, and with a string and a candle became the first person to enter Wind Cave. And from that point on, people were hooked. And people wanted to come and see it. But not everybody used it for exploration. You know, okay, this is really funny. And I think because you're a pretty practical person, Ash, you might figure this out. What do you think the most practical use for Wind Cave was?
Practical use for Wind Cave. Hiding something.
That's a pretty good guess. I mean, it makes sense. You would hide something.
I'm thinking about who could fit through a 10-inch hole, which would be like a son, our son, who's middle school age and into all sorts of mischief.
The world's best hide-and-go-seek hiding place.
Like, that's where he would hide, like, the food that he's saving for later that he wasn't supposed to eat or something, you know?
Nope, but very good idea. Actually, even more practical than that, I think.
Okay.
The first real practical use for the cave was air conditioning.
Oh, they just stand outside the hole.
Well, so the Binghams were so practical, they put a cabin right over the top of the entrance.
Oh my gosh.
So that way, in the hot summer months, the cold air coming out of the cave would air condition their little cabin.
That's amazing.
That'd be sweet, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Although I feel like it could backfire because, like we said, when they discovered it, sometimes the air blows out of the cave. Sometimes it gets sucked in.
Right.
Just depending on I'm sure we'll talk about it. But what if you built your cabin over it and then it sucked in all the cold air in the winter comes into your cabin?
Yeah, that would be rough. That would be rough. The suction motion of Wind Cave could...
Or it sucks in all the hot air from outside into... Anyway.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is. Maybe worth it. Maybe.
Yep. You have to build two cabins.
Yeah.
One that could be benefiting from the air conditioning and the other one that's just normal. Okay. But for the rest of the 1880s, Wind Cave would stay mostly a local novelty. They did dig out another entrance so people could more easily get in the cave. But in 1889, Wind Cave was about to find an unlikely champion. A local mining company bought the mineral rights to the land where Wind Cave sits, and J.D. McDonald and his family moved there to manage the claim. They didn't find any gold, but J.D. had a son. Who do you think that was, Ash?
He is my favorite. He's just, I love this kid.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even know him. He died a long time ago.
Alvin McDonald. Oh my gosh. J.D. McDonald's son, Alvin, he was 16 years old. He fell in love with this cave. And he is the unlikely champion of Wind Cave.
16.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can see a 16-year-old loving a cave. I get that. But what I love about it is just how much he loved the cave and how much he wanted just it to be something special for people.
Oh, he is so awesome. And he started going into the cave during his spare time. And he would spend hours in there with nothing but a string and a candle. And he began to keep a diary of everything he did in the cave. One of his early entries reads, "On the first day of January, 1891, I saw fit to keep a record of the inside workings at Wind Cave, which I called The Private Account of A.F. McDonald, Permanent Guide of Wind Cave." It's just the perfect teenager, you know? He's just so excited about it. And he was the first true explorer of Wind Cave. He would go in there with a plan, and he would systematically record everything that he did, mapping out routes, naming rooms and passageways, and he wrote down the interesting and unusual things he would find, where certain cave decorations were and how he believed they formed, and he would spend hours and hours finding new places that this was very important to him, that no human being had ever been in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He would frequently go in during the day and not come out till like 2, 3, even 4 o'clock in the morning, which as a mom, you'd be like, where's my son?
Yeah. Though I wouldn't have been brave enough to go after him, so be shouting down the hole, Alvin,
Mm-hmm.
Come home for dinner.
Just hearing the echo come back. Alvin, Alvin. Well, it was like his own personal adventure, because it was. And nobody knew more about Wind Cave than he did. And you can actually find his journal is in the visitor center.
Yeah.
And so you can see it, and it's just so neat to see the actual artifact itself. But when visitors came, he told them that he was the chief guide at Wind Cave. And pretty soon, there was more money in guiding people through the cave than there was in either mining or homesteading the land. The McDonalds actually took on some business partners to help them grow the business related to the cave, and people loved it, and they had the best experiences at the cave, mostly because of Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you were on a tour with Alvin, you were part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And if he saw an unfamiliar passageway, he would want to explore it.
With you.
He made sure that nobody ever got lost, but he often stretched the boundaries of what most people would probably feel comfortable with. He would bring a lot of string to make sure you could find your way back out. But if you ran out of string, he believed that if you could still hear the people that had the string, then you were just fine. Which is terrifying to me,
Yeah.
personally. He also knew that you needed to be careful with your candles because you didn't want your candles to run out while you were still in the cave.
Nope.
So Ash, what do you do if you're guiding a group of people through the cave and you find a passageway that you really need to explore, but you don't have enough candles to do it?
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of the darkness of caves. So if you're asking me personally, that I would be in a full-blown panic and getting out as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. Alvin, can you come back later and do this yourself?
Yeah. Can I please leave?
The solution probably wouldn't make you very happy, Ash, because he would have the group put out their candles and then he would leave the group in the dark and he would go explore it himself. And
like, we can't waste these, so just stay where you're at.
Exactly.
Don't move. You can't get lost that way.
Exactly.
I'll be back in 3 hours.
Some members of the group probably came with him, mainly as assistance to the exploring, because you can leave the group so you preserve the candles, but then if you run out of string, you need someone to be able to yell at while they hold on to the string and he continues to explore.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh. Needless to say, his curiosity about the cave was legendary.
Mm-hmm.
And because he frequently left individuals alone in the cave while he went to explore something real quick.
I love that so much.
How real quick is real quick? I'm not really sure. But there is a popular urban legend about Alvin that I couldn't find real proof of, but it paints a pretty amazing picture of what it was like to go into the cave with him. And as the legend goes, he went in with a group of people and for hours explored the cave with them. But then he saw something he really wanted to explore. So he left them in the dark while he went off to check it out. But he got so excited exploring that he forgot about the people he had left behind. So after exploring around, he simply made his way out of the cave, went home and went to bed.
Oh no.
And then the next morning he jolted awake and remembered that he left the group down in the cave. So he quickly grabbed his stuff, went back in and retrieved the poor sad.
See, my greatest fear. My greatest fear of caves.
Oh my gosh. I mean, luckily they still had candles in the string, probably. But like I said, as far as I can tell, it's an urban legend.
That's so
But
funny.
I remember hearing that urban legend from a park ranger
Yeah.
in Wind Cave. But my mom is pretty claustrophobic. And if somebody left her in the dark in the cave for half an hour, I'm pretty sure she would come back from that cave tour feeling like they left me there overnight.
Oh, I'm sure. It doesn't take much to start panicking.
Oh my gosh. And
In a
Mom, if
dark
you're listening,
cave.
sorry about that voice that I did for you. Oh my gosh. But the Alvin McDonald experience in Wind Cave would have just been spectacular.
Yeah.
And they kind of became synonymous in their expectations for what Wind Cave would be like. Like Alvin McDonald and Wind Cave, they were said together in the same sentence.
That's why you went to Wind Cave.
Yeah.
To be guided by him.
The chief guide of Wind Cave.
Self-appointed chief. I just love that.
Exactly. And they were having so much success that they decided to market the cave back east. And so they packed up a bunch of cave formations and they went to Chicago to tell everybody about Wind Cave at the Columbian Exposition in 1893. Unfortunately, on the trip, Alvin caught typhoid fever, and he died at the age of 20 on December 15th in 1893, and was buried on a hill not far from the natural entrance of the cave. And you can actually go and visit his grave if you want to.
I always thought it was so sad that he died so young.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to start with the human history in this fun facts episode, because both of these fun facts end in kind of a bummer.
Yeah. But what's cool about Alvin is that what he mapped in Wind Cave is pretty much what we know about Wind Cave.
Right. Which is bringing us to fun fact number 2. That was the perfect segue, Ash. Fun fact number 2 is all about how amazing Alvin was and like how much he accomplished. But I'm pretty sure that without Alvin talking specifically about his life and death, I think it's pretty unlikely that Wind Cave becomes a national park. Without his life, I don't think Wind Cave attracts enough attention to get on the nation's radar as like a really cool cave, because it was his passion for the cave that caused so many people to come and visit it in the first place. But without his death, I don't think it becomes a national park, because after his death, everything just kind of fell apart. The mining company that had the original mining claim and the mineral rights sued the McDonalds because they wanted the cave. And then the McDonalds and their business partners were suing each other over ownership rights of the business, and the homesteading claim that the McDonalds had on the land was also being challenged. And so everything was falling apart and everybody was suing each other. Well, thanks to all the lawsuits going back and forth, the cave gained even more publicity and eventually national attention as the cases got sent higher and higher up. And in 1899, the land office in Washington handed down its ruling, and it surprised everyone. The commissioner basically said, well, there are no minerals to be mined, so the mining company loses. And the homestead isn't really a homestead, so the McDonalds lose. And since you need either a valid mining claim or a homesteading claim to access the land, and the lawsuits between the McDonalds and their business partners depend on access to the land, they both lose.
Everybody loses.
And then exactly. And then the part that nobody saw coming. Since he determined that nobody involved had a valid ownership claim, he recommended that the land be set aside by the government until it could be made into what he termed a permanent reservation. And it was like there were 3 kids fighting over a toy, and the grown-up just decided to take the toy away and play with it himself.
I know. I'm like, that's one way to do it. I mean, I'll never be sad about land getting set aside, but it is funny how it came about. It's kind of like,
I know.
He's just like, stop squabbling.
I know.
We're going to keep it.
You dang kids. I'm taking it. And it worked, because in 1903, when President Theodore Roosevelt signed it into law, he made it Wind Cave the 6th national park and the first national park dedicated to preserving a cave. But I honestly don't know if
we can't skirt over that. Like, that's what I love that. Most people don't know Wind Cave was the first cave national park.
It wasn't Mammoth Cave.
No, it was Wind Cave.
Yes. Such a huge deal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so that's why I'm saying, like, without his life of proving that this cave is amazing, nobody would have cared about it. But honestly, without his death because everybody was happy while he was alive.
Yeah, because it was prosperous and
Mhm.
people were coming and they were making money.
Yep.
Everything was fine.
Everybody's happy when everybody's making money.
Right.
But if things change and, they no longer have their chief guide, that's when the squabbling starts. And that's why I think without his untimely death, Wind Cave doesn't become a national park, because there are tons of examples of privately owned caves throughout the country.
So many, yeah.
And Wind Cave probably would have been one of them, which is why I think that in just about every way, Alvin McDonald was a champion for Wind Cave National Park. It was the love of his life from age 16 to 20, and even though he only had 3 to 4 years to explore it, and this is fun fact number 2, using string, candlelight, and voice contact, he discovered and mapped the first 8 to 10 miles of Wind Cave. And his exploration was so extensive that it wasn't until 1963, 70 years after his death, that they discovered any new passageways at Wind Cave National Park.
It's nuts. It's so crazy.
Oh man, 70 years. And that's with people with like headlamps and walkie-talkies and radios and flashlights.
Yeah.
This kid did it as a teenager.
He'd already been to all those places. They're already all in his journal. Scientists are finding things and it's like, nope, Alvin's already been here.
I know. Oh my gosh.
So cool.
They see his little markings on the walls, or maybe a little bit of a candle burn on the ceiling or something.
Yep.
Dang it, man. I thought for sure this would be a place where he hadn't been before.
Nope, that's the passage he found during that tour.
Where he left everybody overnight. Oh my gosh. But what an amazing champion for Wind Cave National Park.
Yeah.
And he is kind of the hero of chapter 2 of Wind Cave's exploration history. He's so neat. But why? Why did Alvin fall in love with this cave? Why have so many people, scientists, geologists, Native Americans, and normies alike, all fallen in love with this cave? It's because, as far as I can tell, there are some things about this cave that you really can't find anywhere else in the world. Not just anywhere else in the country, anywhere else in the world. And so that now we're going to kind of leave the human history aspect and we're going to get into the amazing scientific stuff about this cave. And I'm just so excited. Okay.
I'm ready for this.
Now, it doesn't necessarily seem like we fully understand why. It might have to do with the age of the cave. It might have to do with the local climate. But that's changed over millions of years. It might have to do with the coming and going of shallow seas over the land, saturating and unsaturating the ground, or the different types of rocks and the way that some of the rocks let water through and others don't. We don't really seem to know exactly why, but this cave is super unique and has some features that you can't find. It's probably a mixture of like everything put together.
The perfect recipe for a unique and rare cave.
Right. If you've listened to the Mammoth Cave Fun Facts episode, that episode is all about movement of water.
Yeah, like full rivers
Yes.
going through Mammoth Cave and opening up passages.
It's totally different from this cave. It's like the difference between like a shower and a bath. In a shower, the water is somewhat pressurized and moves fast, which helps you clean up quickly and get on with your day. In a bath, you take things slowly. You sit and you soak. You let all the soap and the bubbles and the salts or the bath bombs or whatever, and you sit in it and it works nice and slow. I don't take baths.
Can you tell? He's like, all the stuff, the bath bombs. He learned what a bath bomb was because I told him I wanted one for Christmas.
All I know is that you get wrinkly in a bath and you don't in the shower.
And John doesn't like sitting in his own filth.
That is why I don't take baths. Also the fact that I don't fit in any tubs.
Yeah, he's
Oh my gosh.
6'3". So,
But it's interesting. Both a bath and a shower supposedly do the same thing. They clean you.
supposedly, in quotation marks.
Exactly. But they also kind of have the same ingredients. They have water and they have soap. They should do the same thing. But if you change the delivery mechanism and you change some of the process up, it's a totally different experience. All I'm saying is that similar ingredients with a different process equals different results.
Yeah.
Not to mention the time factor. Mammoth Cave really is like a shower. It's fast. Mammoth Cave is only 10 to 15 million years old. But there are portions of Wind Cave that are around 320 million years old.
Oof.
That's a long bath.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of soaking.
And we're not talking about just the rocks that the cave passages are carved out of. We're talking about cave passages and rooms that were carved out 320 million years ago. So the oldest rooms in the whole world.
Yeah.
And
sheesh.
It's just crazy because that's older. Like some of the rooms, some of the passageways in Wind Cave are older than dinosaurs. They're older than mammals. They're older than even flight. Like life hadn't even evolved flight at that point yet. And there was a room that you can go in that was existing at that time. And just keep in mind these words, different process, different result. And one of the results of the different process is what makes Wind Cave famous, which brings me to the subject of fun fact number 3, and one of the most amazing things you can really only find here at Wind Cave.
Boxwork.
One of the most amazing aspects of Wind Cave, and if you don't know what boxwork is, I have a story to tell you that will do a good job of introducing it to us. But Ash, just in general, what does boxwork look like?
It looks like honeycomb.
It does. With or without the honey in it?
With.
Okay.
Is that the right answer?
I was going to say without, but I think
I'm
that
picturing
works.
it in my mind. Sometimes it looks a little drippy.
Yeah, it's true. Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have anything in between is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
like the cells.
The cavities. Yeah, the little cells are empty. But I was thinking, yeah, it could look like it's like dripping honey.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. We're
I see
both
that.
right.
We're both right. See, this is why our marriage works.
Yeah, sure.
Agree to disagree. Okay.
No, we're both right.
All right.
Yeah,
Agree to agree.
Right.
Okay. Well, one year when I was growing up, my scout troop went on a southern Utah backpacking trip. And one thing our scout leaders were very specific about was that you needed to be pretty careful about the weight in your backpack. Why, Ash? Why do you care about weight in your backpack?
Because it's miserable if you're carrying too much.
Exactly. That being said, backpackers will often allow themselves a special treat, like a luxury treat that you can spread throughout the trip. Do you have a special one that you like?
No, I make extra room for shoes that are not my hiking shoes. That's like my one thing.
So it's not something you eat, but it's something you enjoy.
It's something that I've learned if I cannot take off my hiking shoes and put on like some slide sandals or chacos or flip-flops, then my feet are so sad when we get to camp at the end of the long day.
Exactly. And so some people bring an object that you can wear, or
some people bring their special pillow or
exactly
their peanut butter M&Ms.
Exactly.
That's another one.
One of my buddies brought a bag of Jolly Ranchers as his luxury treat. And it was pretty light, and each one was individually wrapped, and they were pretty easy to eat on the go. Well, part of this backpacking trip included going through a slot canyon, and there was water at the bottom of the slot canyon. Most of the time it was pretty shallow, but sometimes it got pretty deep. And when the water was high, everybody would take their backpack off and wade through the water while holding the backpack over their head. Now, what my friend didn't notice was that early in the day, the backpack pocket, the pocket with the Jolly Ranchers, accidentally got water in it. And because his backpack was mostly waterproof, the pocket held on to that water throughout the day.
Jolly Rancher soup.
Well, at the end of the day, after miles and miles of backpacking, he was looking forward to a nice luxury treat. So he plopped his backpack down, opened up his backpack pocket, and pulled out the bag of Jolly Ranchers. It was a bit wet and sticky, but he grabbed one out of the bag, he quickly unwrapped it, but to his surprise and confusion, there was nothing inside. He grabbed another one, unwrapped it. nothing inside. And then again and again, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, again and again and again it happened. Empty Jolly Rancher wrappers. Then lightning struck. It made sense. He realized what happened. Throughout the day, the water that had gotten into his backpack pocket had slowly dissolved every single one of the Jolly Ranchers inside of their wrappers.
But the wrapper still looked like there was a Jolly Rancher in it.
Exactly. And so at the end of his hike, all he had left was a bag of perfectly preserved Jolly Rancher wrappers. He was
Bummer.
He was so mad. It was like the Grinch really had stolen Christmas, and all he had to open were empty boxes on Christmas morning. Those Jolly Rancher wrappers are boxwork. That's how boxwork works. It's this super delicate formation that was surrounding something else that dissolved and disappeared. And now all we have left is the wrapper.
Which is why you're saying that the honeycomb is empty.
Exactly.
Because that's the whole point of boxwork, is that there's nothing in between.
Exactly. And Wind Cave is full of this boxwork. It's all over the place. It's not clear like a Jolly Rancher wrapper, but like you talked about a minute ago, it kind of resembles that honeycomb shape. It looks like a really thin cardboard box in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything is squared in, but the outsides, like the actual structure of the boxwork is so thin.
Yeah.
It's just so thin and delicate, but it's like all over the ceilings, you know, and you'll see it and you'll look up and it's just like there's just cells of empty space surrounded by these really thin, delicate rocks.
Yes, exactly. And because it's so delicate, it's also super rare. And like back to the shower versus the bath metaphor again, if the water moves too fast, it could wash right off the walls.
Yeah.
All of this would be gone. And boxwork itself was once a dissolved substance. One of my favorite things about geology is how minerals dissolve in one place and they get deposited somewhere else in a new form. Millions of years ago, the limestone rocks at Wind Cave developed a bunch of cracks, and then slightly acidic water, kind of like the consistency of cream soda, trickled into those cracks. And when it dried out, it became this super fragile wrapper around the limestone. And then this is where it gets kind of crazy because the ingredients had to be perfect at Wind Cave. Because then later on, when water filled up the cave again, the ingredients had to be just right
to dissolve the limestone and not the
boxwork. Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking about it in my mind, and I'm like, how in the heck did that happen? That's so crazy that the limestone part was the part that dissolved and not the delicate boxwork wrapper.
Right.
How?
I know.
How? That doesn't make sense.
And it's so rare around the world that this recipe for boxwork is ever followed properly. The process to make it is never followed properly because fun fact number 3 is that Wind Cave National Park is filled with more boxwork than you can find in all other caves on Earth put together.
I've never seen it anywhere else.
Right.
And we've been to a lot of caves. A lot.
It's crazy.
And it just covers the walls and ceilings in Wind Cave. It's not even like the rangers like, and here's a super rare formation, you know, in this tiny little spot over here. Everybody look carefully. And it smacks you in the face. Like boxwork, 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 boxwork.
Oh my gosh. Everywhere.
It's amazing.
There's so much of it that you almost, by the end of the tour, stop noticing it.
I know. You're kind of like, I'm good with boxwork.
Oh.
Wind Cave's like, nope.
Not
more.
I know. It's just going to keep giving it to you good and hard. But
I think you need to go into Wind Cave with that expectation, because I think if you don't know that, you're probably going in thinking, I'm going to see like all the stuff that I want to see, like all the pretty stuff, right?
Right.
Stalactites, stalagmites, cave bacon, draperies, flowstones, all of that, you know? And then you get into Wind Cave and you're like, I'm not seeing any of the things that I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where people get underwhelmed.
Right.
Is because you're going into it thinking you're going to have like a traditional cave experience, but instead you're seeing just, walls and ceilings covered in boxwork.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I mean, if you don't know what you're looking at, for sure I could see you being like, we wanted to see stalactites. Where are the stalactites?
I know. It's so true. And there are a zillion other caves where you can see that.
Yeah.
But Wind Cave, you have to think of it, if we're sticking with the metaphor of bees for a minute, it's like there are no bees basically anywhere else in the world, or maybe one or two. And then you come to Wind Cave and you're shoved into the heart of a beehive.
Yeah.
And that's all you see is bees everywhere.
Yep.
But you can't see that anywhere else in the whole world. The ingredients, the process, everything has to be followed just right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't get it in the first place. And it was followed so well here that that's all you see.
That's what was formed here. And Jewel Cave, being 30 minutes down the road from here, has a surprising lack of boxwork.
Right.
So even something right in the same area can look totally different depending on the ingredients.
One ingredient, one small deviation in the process, and it all is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's remarkable. It's absolutely spectacular, but you do need to know the importance of it. You need to go into it with the right expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I do think you'll be like, well, it was fine.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Which, what a shame, because you're seeing something truly rare here.
And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to focus on it for this specific fun fact, is because it needs to be talked about so people know what to expect and how to appreciate what they're seeing.
Yeah.
It's such a big deal.
Makes a huge difference.
Yes. But boxwork isn't the only thing that's amazingly rare and awesome at Wind Cave.
I'm so excited about this one too.
There is another formation that most people can't see because it's a little bit deeper in the cave than you can get to. But Wind Cave has another formation that's extremely rare, and I don't think you can find anywhere else. And Ash, in your list of other formations that you can see, you actually omitted it from the list.
I did, because I knew I'm a cave ranger. I know these things, but what's cool, so this formation is called a helictite.
Right.
And it's not one that you normally hear about or will hear mentioned very often. It is very rare. It just so happens that the cave I worked at here in Utah, Timpanogos Cave, actually has a lot of helictites.
Right.
That's kind of what makes that cave so cool.
Right.
And so at Timpanogos Cave, there's like a whole room. The ceiling is covered in helictites. It's incredible. But Wind Cave has helictites.
Yes.
And not very many caves do.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that makes helictites pretty darn amazing is that they seem to ignore the law of gravity.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the laws of physics do not apply to helictites.
So a helictite is basically, if you've seen a soda straw formation, and these are very delicate, they're usually pretty thin, like maybe half an inch at most.
Right.
And they have like a hollow center that the water can travel down. This mineral water can travel down. And so a soda straw it's like a straw. If you were to break one off, you could probably drink through it. And it looks just like a straw.
Right.
And really functions just like a straw. The water comes down, deposits the minerals at the end, but the middle stays hollow. So a helictite is a lot like a soda straw in that way. Very delicate, pretty small. But what it does is it defies the laws of gravity.
Yeah.
It will twist and turn. So it will kind of start out maybe looking like a soda straw, and then all of a sudden it will just go whoop. And it's like one of those crazy straws that your kids like to drink through.
Yeah.
Where it's just like everything just starts twisting and turning and going all strange. And sometimes it goes up, sometimes it curves around, sometimes it's twirly. Like, they're crazy. They're insane.
There's no rhyme or reason to the shapes of helictites.
They're really cool. And what else is cool is like we have some ideas of how they form, but nobody knows for sure.
Right.
But we do think it has to do with the pressure of the water as it's coming down through through the arteries in the middle, or like where there's little holes or little veins,
Right.
if you will, through the middle of the formation. But there's just enough pressure that sometimes that water gets pushed out in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't just drip like a lot of other cave formations. It will like get pushed out to the side. And then the minerals will get deposited that way. And so that's why we think they kind of go weird. But nobody knows for sure.
That's what the wind cave scientists have on the NPS site. They call it capillary action or something like that, which is just the addition of water pressure into the formation is what causes the cool.
Instead of just the regular dripping, we think because that water's squeezing through a really small hole. It pushes it a different direction when it deposits.
It's so cool. Some people think there might be the addition of some type of bacteria that helps add to the shape, but it's super neat. But like, what size, as a park ranger, Ash, what size are helictites usually?
So at Timpanogos Cave, it really is phenomenal. There's a whole room that's just full of helictites. It looks like a bowl of ramen noodles on the ceiling. Those ones are probably about 6 to 8 inches, somewhere in there, the 8-inch range, which actually is pretty big for a helictite.
Right.
That's a pretty decent size helictite. You can get some really cool curly cues when they're that long.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So almost always you measure helictites in inches or centimeters, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's amazing about Wind Cave, and this is fun fact number 4. Fun fact number 4 is that at Wind Cave National Park, you can find what they call helictite bushes, and they might be the largest helictites in the world.
Okay.
The largest of which was discovered in 1970, and they named it Emperor Maximus I, the ruler of all helictite bushes.
Was that colon descriptor, was that added by you or them?
No, it was added by them.
Okay.
Because it's 6 feet tall.
Oh my gosh.
6 feet.
6 feet?
Yes. And from what I can tell, most helictites, like you talked about, they're like the size of your hand, and we're measuring.
I don't know how that would even be still there.
Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wait, have you seen a picture of it?
I have.
Is it still narrow? Like, is it still small, or did it build out wide?
It looks like a giant, extra tall tumbleweed. It's huge.
The whole bush is 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So it's not just one helictite.
No.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's a huge, giant bush. And that's why, and so it's incredible.
How is it coming off the ceiling?
It looks like it's coming off the ceiling.
How?
I don't know. But that's an order of magnitude larger than any other one I've been able to find.
That has been growing for the full 300 million years. There has some, the helictites are so slow growing.
I know.
Because it's like literally one drop of water at a time.
Right.
Depositing in weird directions.
Right. And just a little bit of pressure here and there. It's like a fossilized bush. It's huge.
Wow. I need to go be a cave scientist at Wind Cave so I can go see it.
It's amazing. But that's why they called it the ruler of all helictite bushes.
No kidding.
Because it's just amazing. It's so much bigger than anything I've been able to find. And I looked for a long time. That's why I had to make like the little disclaimer that it might be the largest helictite in the world. But I'm pretty sure it's far and away the biggest we've ever found on the planet.
That's so crazy.
But it's not even necessarily alone. In 2020, they found another one that they named Empress Maxima. And it's in a section of the cave that is near some water. And it's really big. You can't even get the whole thing in a picture. And a lot of them, they don't all grow from the ceiling. Some of them They grow up.
Yeah, because they can defy gravity. Because they just do their thing.
I know. And so...
Wow.
And so it's kind of amazing that Wind Cave has 2 super rare, unique formations, and in sizes and amounts that far and away destroy any other cave on the planet.
I cannot get over that. I'm like literally looking up a job at Wind Cave right now. How do I get to be the person who gets to go in and see that?
Oh my gosh.
Because I've never seen that on a tour. We've done all the tours.
We have. We have never seen.
Showed me Emperor Maximus.
Oh my gosh. But like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's like the more I seem to learn about this park, the more amazing it becomes.
Yeah.
And I think I understand why Alvin McDonald just fell in love with this place. It kind of reminds me of Lord of the Rings when Gandalf talks about why hobbits are such amazing creatures. It's like, you can learn all there is to know about them and their ways in a month. But even after 100 years, they can still surprise you. You know, there's always more to discover here at Wind Cave.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But for our last fun fact, we're going to talk about something really cool. It has to do with the name of Wind Cave itself. The word wind sets it apart. And as obvious and elementary as that is, I can promise you that even though you know why it's called Wind Cave, the whooshing, why it was discovered and stuff, the wind itself holds a surprising secret, and we're going to discover it real quick. But before we get there, Ash knows this, but a lot of people may not know that there is kind of a quiet rivalry between some of the national park cave sites. You don't necessarily notice it at places like Mammoth Cave because it's kind of the top of the heap, being the longest cave system in the world.
By far.
By far. But if you go to Wind Cave or Carlsbad, the rangers will kind of point out things that like, well, we have this and Mammoth Cave doesn't have it.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
Right.
But here at Wind Cave, the rangers, they're even a little bit more so, I would say, kind of like, well, let me tell you something. Because in their mind, when people say that Mammoth Cave is the longest cave system in the world, they kind of get this like hopeful gleam in their eye. And then they say, well, all we have to do is connect to Jewel Cave.
Yeah. It's so true. It's always like for now, Mammoth Cave.
Right.
Now.
Exactly.
We're working on it. We know we're longer, but we can't prove it yet.
Okay, because Wind Cave is 167 miles is what they've discovered so far. And Jewel Cave is 220 miles. Okay, it's like they're playing the game of Settlers of Catan and they're trying to connect 2 settlements and make the longest road.
Yep.
You know, is what the rangers at Wind Cave are trying to do. But the 2 caves are only like 20 miles apart.
Yeah, they're really close.
And
especially probably when you start looking at underground maps. It's like, I think we're pretty darn close.
Yeah. And so if it is one cave system, Jewel Cave and Wind Cave put together, plus the 20-mile separation, that means that the Mammoth Cave is only ahead by 19 miles.
Yeah.
And that's why...
That can go so fast.
That's why
I just needed to discover a few passages.
That's why the rangers, with a hopeful gleam in their eye, say, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
You know? But the math isn't the only reason why they're hopeful.
This is cool. This is actually, the last time we were in Wind Cave, the ranger talked about this. And I was like, how did I not know this?
Yes.
After being in the cave so much.
Yeah. It's not even the math between like adding Wind Cave and Jewel Cave together.
No,
it's the wind. Okay, but what? Why and what and how? How is it the wind at Wind Cave? It's all about pressure and air pressure. It's what the meteorologists call barometric pressure. If you've ever swam to the bottom of a pool and you can feel the pressure in your ears, that's the weight of all the water on top of you. That's the water pressure on your ears. Air is kind of the same way, but it's so light that we don't even necessarily notice it. Now, hot weather, cold weather, stormy weather, all different kinds of weather can affect the air pressure or the barometric pressure on the surface of the earth. And it fluctuates all the time. Here's how it relates to the cave. the cave has that little tiny 10-inch opening, but the cave, it's in a constant state almost all the time. Year round, it's 54 degrees in the cave. There's no weather, nothing. So it's almost always level and even. But because there's that connection with the surface, you have a little bit of ebb and flow. That's why they called it the breathing earth. Okay. And so if you have a high pressure system on the surface of the earth, that is going to be higher than the pressure in the cave. And so that will push air into the cave. If the pressure on the surface is a low pressure system, the pressure inside the cave is probably going to be higher than the low pressure. And so air will blow out of the cave. You have to kind of think of it almost like a balloon. When you blow up a balloon, every breath is blowing up and expanding the balloon to a certain amount. Okay. But if you can blow up the balloon and see how much it expands, that means you can measure.
Yes.
You can measure air. Air takes up space. If you can measure the wind, you can.
It's like a balloon animal.
Yes.
Those balloons.
Yes.
If the air's still going in, there's still space back there.
Exactly. And so if you can figure out how much space air takes up, then you can figure out how much space should fill a balloon or should fill a room or a building or a cave. And then you can also reverse engineer it. And that's what the scientists have done here at Wind Cave. They have measured how much air goes in and out of the cave. And by doing that, they have been able to make the calculations and figure out how large Wind Cave really is. And so even though we've only explored 167 miles of it, we've done the math. And this is fun fact number 5. Fun fact number 5 is that even though we've only physically explored 167 miles of Wind Cave thus far, by measuring the volume of the air that comes out, by measuring the wind that blows out of that natural entrance, they believe that we have only discovered about 10% of the entire cave, which is crazy. Oh, holy smokes. Do the math, folks.
Mic drop.
Do the math.
There's nothing to say. That would make it like 2.5 times bigger.
Larger.
Mammoth Cave.
That's like a 1,600 mile cave. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, that would be my math. It's not good. Do the math, you guys.
Do the math. If it's 10%.
Like a fourth.
Yeah. The Mammoth Cave
would be like a fourth of what they think Wind Cave is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wind Cave would be a 1,600 mile cave. Okay, so here's a little bit of a disclaimer. If Wind Cave continues to be smallish passageways like we have now, and all the passageways are small, it would be a 1,600 mile cave. But if we discover a giant room,
huge room would take a lot of air.
It would take a lot of air.
Yeah.
And so, but either way, what an amazing thing to be able to discover.
Yeah.
And we haven't discovered it yet.
We need Alvin.
Oh, that's insane. I know, but even in 1892, Alvin McDonald said in his diary that he's given up on the idea of finding the end of Wind Cave.
Yeah.
And I mean, wow, what a
probably right. He probably never would have found it.
No, not with a candle and a string. Oh my gosh, but you could spend a lifetime exploring this cave and never find the end of it. It's a true subterranean wonderland. An endless wonderland, honestly. But that's why when you talk to the park rangers, that's why they have that gleam in their eye. Mm-hmm. It's only a matter of time because they've done the math.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, we told you we were excited about Wind Cave. I think we were pretty darn excited in this episode. I can hear our voices getting higher and higher and higher and faster, and we're so excited. It's just a really special place. Mm-hmm. I think really the mixture between the human history and the science of it just encompasses, it just embodies like being special, being rare, being unique, being unknown, mysterious, all the things. And so while it may not look like much from the surface,
Mm-hmm.
And even when you get down in there, you may be thinking, not sure about this.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, through this episode, you feel the gravity of just how special this place is to so many people.
Yes. But that's why every time we talk about it, we have a gleam in our eye. Because we know about Boxwork, we know about the helictites, we know about the human history and the sheer size of this place.
Yeah. Incredible. Wonderful.
Okay, so for the task today, I think we just want to send you to see some of this stuff. And so if we're going to have a link in the show notes, but please go to the National Park Service Wind Cave site specifically. We'll have a link for it, like I said, but if you're interested in the human history aspect, you can see the emergence story told to you by a Native American park ranger. You can also click to see the diary that Alvin has. You can read every one of his entries, which would take way too long, but you can see it. Or you can actually look through the gallery of some of these cave formations and see the boxwork or the helictites.
And also, because the elevators have been broken so much, they actually offer like virtual cave tours too.
Right.
So
exactly.
Spend a little bit of time, give yourself 15, 20 minutes. Go over and check out something cool that we talked about that you maybe want to learn more about or dig deeper into.
Right. But I think seeing some of this stuff for yourself will really, hopefully we were able to enrich your experience, but actually seeing it too is really cool.
Yeah. And you can tell that we love the national parks. This episode, we're a little excited, and that's truly how we feel about all the national parks. We love these parks. So if you're enjoying our podcast and you love exploring the parks with us, please leave us a 5-star review. We do read them all. We wish we could comment, but we do read them. And we're so grateful for you for exploring the parks with us and loving these parks and being excited about these parks and being a part of our community. So thank you so much for being here. We will see you next time. We've got a goodie for you, and go get some dirt in your shoes.